Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Cornish, Games for Change. I'm excited to introduce our next workshop facilitators. How many in the room have heard of Classcraft? Just curious. All right. Couple of hands. I thought you guys were more popular. Just kidding.
We're underground.
So you are in for a treat. This is going to be a super fun, hands-on game-making workshop. So these guys might have you rearrange your seats, get in some bigger groups. For now, I'll let them kick off and talk to you about what Classcraft is. But we're super excited about this this next hour-long workshop. So thank you for coming. And this is Devin Young and Shawn Young of Classcraft, and that is Stephanie as well. Hi, Stephanie. So yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Sarah. So hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. As Sarah mentioned, my name is Shawn, and this is my brother, Devin. We're the co-founders of Classcraft. Today, what we want to do is talk to you a bit about the design philosophy that we put into Classcraft and what are the parts that we extracted from video games and brought into the classroom with this platform, and then get you guys to interactively work together on doing that. So we built a card game for this workshop. You're getting cards right now. We're going to explain the game at the end of this little talk. We're basically going to be talking now for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to get hands-on for the rest of the time period. So my background is I'm taught for 10 years, and I'm a developer. Worked with Devin for that long period. Devin's a designer. He's behind all our great graphics. So basically, Classcraft is a platform to transform any classroom into an adventure. It lasts throughout the year, and the idea is for kids to completely live their school experience as a game. So everything that happens in the classroom is part of the game. And we'll get a bit into what that looks like later on. But just to give you context, we launched this 2 years ago. We're now in 20,000 classes. We have just crossed the 1 million users mark recently. So we have kids all over the country dressing up as our characters and collaborating to get through school, and teachers making great maps and really reimagining their classroom experience. We're gonna do this pretty quickly to make sure we have enough time, but basically we're gonna look at what are the things in games that basically answer the question, why is a child willing to spend 3 hours doing the same repetitive task to try and beat a boss in a video game, but is not willing to spend 5 minutes to do the same repetitive task for math homework. And there's something about video games that is really special, and that's what we want to look at today and find out what those things are, and then look at how we can use them in real-life school contexts. So basically, the reason games are powerful is really rooted in motivation. And typically, we act on external motivation. External motivation is the desire to do something because there's an external force pushing you to do that. So study your math because you'll get good grades, and getting good grades in the future will lead to a good job, and etc. So those are not things that are internally motivating. They're things that come from the outside and that push us. The problem with that is that those external motivators, through time, you have to make them stronger and stronger and stronger because we acclimatize to them. If you're always punishing somebody for the same thing in the same way, after a while they don't care anymore. Internal motivation is desire to do something for one's own sake. And this is where we're talking about video games. Kids are willing to put all that energy into defeating a boss because they want to and because they have fun. And so the problem there is, obviously we would want kids to have this great internal desire to learn. Unfortunately, we have very few tools as educators to act on that. And that's where games come in. Games are really good at driving motivation internally. And they're really good at it for several reasons. So we identified 7 core mechanics within games that games are really good at putting forward and that drive that motivation. So we basically pulled examples from the video game industry. These are games that do one thing really well out of these different sets. So the first one is autonomy. Minecraft is great at that. Minecraft lets you do whatever you want. And one of the core constituents of internal motivation is being able to make choices and have ownership over your choices. There's no right way to play Minecraft, and really, is it even playing? So the idea is, because you're able to make all these choices, you have creativity, you have freedom, you have ownership over your own gameplay, And if we translate that to the classroom, over your own learning. Another aspect is competency. So this game was really popular a few years ago. One of the, it's a kind of a very simple, simplistic game. Basically, all you do is you tap and try and fly through pipes. There's horrible graphics, no story. The only thing that's great about this game, and the reason it was so powerful, is because it was really hard. And there's thousands of videos, millions of videos of people playing this game and getting very frustrated because they can't get past the first like 2 pipes, and throwing their phones. And all of a sudden what we're seeing there is that they're really strongly emotionally attached to this experience. And it's because it's hard, it's too hard, but it's not too hard. They have this feeling that they can become better as they practice. And that sense that you can accomplish mastery is super motivating. And it's one of the things video games do really well. Another one is social relationships. So World of Warcraft, obviously, we've all heard of this game. A lot of people play this game. A lot of people have put large numbers of hours leveling up, questing. But some people, all they do is log in and go sit around a fire dressed up as a Tauren. And you're like, oh, is that really the game? Yeah, that is really a core audience of World of Warcraft, is these people who go on there to socialize. And when you look at research, you look at brain scans of people interacting with World of Warcraft, other people online, and with their real friends, and their brains are acting in the same way. So for these players, these social relationships are just as real as real life relationships. And they're so real that they translate into real life. You get cosplay, you get Comic-Con, you get people who met online and are now meeting in real life and bringing those characters into their real life. You even have long-lasting love relationships and there's hundreds of stories of this. People who meet in Warcraft, get married in Warcraft, realize that that person is their significant other, move across the country and get married for real and have a real Warcraft wedding. So those social relationships are real and they're very strong. And when we look at kids, a lot of parents are like, oh, my child is not studying, I'm going to take away their video games. And really what you're doing when you do that is taking away their entire social life. And so we have to be really careful and be cognizant of that and actually use that to drive learning in this case. Another element is discovery. There's a strong desire in human beings to explore. There's games, this is a Super Metroid game from the 90s, great game. But the whole purpose of the game is just to unlock new areas. So get items, open new door, defeat new boss, rinse and repeat. Very successful, very motivating game as well. Another element is the element of surprise. So this is what makes casinos, so popular, is the element that anything could happen and that you could gain a lot through, random things happening. So this is a game called Skyrim. It has a lot of these other elements, but one of the things it had really great is as you're walking around, all of a sudden anything could happen in this game world. So you could be attacked by a giant dragon, you could be robbed, you could, meet any number of random NPCs that could send you off on other quests, and you're basically constantly being sidetracked from your main mission. And so these elements of surprise create this sense of delight, and the idea that anything can happen is really powerful as well. Another thing that games do really well is give feedback. One of the problems in education is that the feedback loop is really slow. Student does work, hands it in, gets graded 3 weeks later, gets that feedback a month later. Games like Diablo give feedback every, 10th of a second. You're seeing, a monster die, hit points changing, loot dropping. And so you're getting this very, very, very fast feedback cycle that allows you to A, iterate, but B, get this dopamine rush of progression. And game makers know this. They work all the time at making better hardware to, if you want to go to the next slide, to evolve that experience from original days Atari all the way to VR now. And the whole reason that there's a whole industry around this hardware is because we want to give better, more immersive feedback and make these games more engaging. And finally, the last aspect that we identified is storytelling. There are a lot of great games that don't have any of these other things. You don't actually develop mastery. You're not, you don't have that many choices to make. There isn't that much feedback. What there is a compelling narrative in which you get to make choices and be part of that narrative. This game, Walking Dead, is a really great game. Basically, it's an interactive movie. You get to make choices, but those choices are heartrending. You have to decide whether you're going to save that little girl from zombies or save the old lady, but you can't save both, and now you have to choose. And 10 minutes later, you kill an old lady. And that's surprisingly very motivating because it allows you to feel these emotions that you wouldn't be able to experience in real life. And so when we built Classcraft, we looked at that, and we identified that when you look at research, this is research on self-determination theory around why video games are addictive. And this is research in a completely different field on how do you drive students to want to learn and take ownership of their learning. So this is from the educational field. And the conclusions are strikingly similar. And when you look at that, you see that, really what these education researchers are telling us is the same thing that these video game makers are telling us, is that there's a fundamental part of human psychology which drives internal motivation. And if it works for video games, there's no reason why we can't apply it to education. And that's what we did with Classcraft, because games are really special. They act as internalizers of motivation. Next slide. And just before we show you how we applied that in Classcraft, there's this idea that games start out as extrinsic motivators. So to get back up to that theory, they're an external set of rules that force you to do something. But as you play, you get caught up in the game, and all of a sudden you want to do those things yourself. A good example of that is golf. If I were to tell you, take this ball and put it in the hole over there, the best way to do that would be to get in the golf cart, grab the ball, go drive over there and stick it in the hole. And that's not fun. and by putting external constraints, no, you can't do that. Actually, you have to use these funny golf clubs and do all these rules and dress funny and go to the golf club. And that's what makes it fun, is those external rules. You bend to those rules, and then you get so caught up in the game that you're willing to get up at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning in pouring rain and go do this game in a totally non-efficient way. So games have this special power to internalize motivation. Devin's going to walk you through a little bit of what we did to basically take the experience of these games and bring it to the classroom.
So Classcraft is a platform. It's online. It's typically meant to be projected at the front of the classroom. It acts as a wrapper around whatever the teacher is already teaching. So we're not actually asking teachers to change what they're teaching, but more think about how to do it differently. So the way it would work is you would run a classroom normally, and then as things happen within the class, as you're teaching, you would assign points to those behaviors. So the interface here, we have Jen is a character. So the reason that she would want to play Classcraft is that she can get awesome powers. So the powers are things like hunting would let you eat in class, or ambush would let you hand in an assignment a day late, or counterattack would let you ask a question on an exam. So the teacher customizes these, but figures out how to make the game relevant to the student in a very practical way. So the way that they unlock these powers is they level up. So how do they level up? They get experience points for behaviors that the teacher wants to encourage. So they'll put in answering a question with more than one word. That might be a behavior they want to encourage, and so they would give points for that, and then they would start tracking it. Students would level up. They would get powers. Where it starts changing a little bit is that actually you can also lose points. So you have HP, health points. You can, as a student, die in Classcraft. We don't call it dying because we don't want to kill students, but we call it falling in battle, and you would get that for doing a negative behavior. So when you, say, show up late, you would lose some health points, and then you could fall in battle, and when you do, you get a negative consequence. And so the other big caveat is that you actually play in teams for the year. And this is really critical. So it moves the educational experience from being a single track, my outcome, my career kind of experience to a collective one. And so here we have a student, say, protecting someone else. So if I showed up late and I'm about to like fall in battle, then my buddy can jump in and protect me, and then they'll take the damage for me, but get rewarded themselves for doing something good. And so in a way, what we're doing is we're modeling behavior of collaboration and all these kinds of things, and it ends up sort of serving a student's self-interest while serving the group. So there's a lot of stuff once you have that in place that you can do, right? We have now like characters and teams and points. We do random events. So we start off every class. This is the element of surprise, right? So you want to show up because then you get the random event right at the bell, and whoever's there experiences it. Sometimes you get cursed by the crazy cat lady, and you got to meow your way through the class, including the teacher. Sometimes the mages can't get out of their chair, and so that gets really complicated when you're trying to do a certain exercise, or you get double points that day for doing something good. It's been amazing to see some teachers kind of take this. We had a teacher this year who made, like, all these are very customizable. So he made one where he wasn't going to shave if one of his students got 100% on a daily quiz, and that lasted 7 months. And he grew out a massive beard, and his test scores went really up. So there's a lot of kind of fun ways to look at culture within the classroom when you start using these tools. So characters also progress. So we went and hired video game concept artists, and we developed all this gear, and we're in the process of developing more our narrative piece, so the storytelling side of it. And so there's a reason kind of for mages looking a certain way, and healers and warriors, and kind of where they come from. So that's stuff that we're going to be pushing a lot more this year. We have a gamified content management system. So teachers can put in their homework, and they can get points. They can have active class discussions and get points for tutoring each other. We just integrated with Google, and they now, we can bring in their assignments and give points based on how well they did in their assignments in Classcraft. So there's like a lot of fun ways to sort of gamify the content piece around it. And then we started doing things like formative assessment, where there's actual boss battles. And so where you've got kids that are really stressed out about coming to school, and they're constantly getting graded through exams and different things. Now here you have an experience where the whole class comes together to overcome a boss, and they're working together, and then they get rewarded together. And so it's been really positive. A lot of students show up really excited to do this. And then, yeah, so there's like a lot of that kind of stuff basically built into it. We have some data as well that's really pertinent and kind of interesting, because we can actually have a clear picture of what the behavior is in the class. So yeah, that's the gist of Classcraft. And so, yeah, go ahead, Shawn.
So that's our take on it. What we want to do today is for you to take these takeaways that we identified and we built a classroom management game. But for example, the panelists that were here earlier were talking about content games. So there's different issues we can address within education and different types of games we can make to address those issues. So basically, we designed a game. This is a gamified workshop about you making a game. It's very meta, and basically the idea is it's a game to make a game. What you have to do in the next half an hour is create a game concept that we could use in classrooms today to solve some of the most pressing education issues that we're facing. And so you'll be getting together in groups, and we'll give you an education issue card. So those cards these are education issues that we identified. So one is development, and there's a little blurb on the cards to you don't have to take notes here, but the first one is problem solving. So how do you develop proper problem solving skills in students? The other one is creativity. How do you develop creativity and creative workflows that are effective? Another one is around classroom culture. How do you create this feeling of ownership of students around coming to class? Growth mindset. How do you create perseverance and the idea that kids can learn from failure? How do you deal with assessment anxiety? How do you develop empathy? Literacy is a huge issue right now. Collaboration. How do you develop proper collaboration skills in students? How do you give them ownership of their own learning? Digital citizenship, which is knowing the etiquette for online behavior and knowing what the different cultural aspects are of digital worlds, and developing critical thinking. So we'll give you one of these per group, and then I'm going to be giving those out. Then we have Sam is going to be giving you 2 cards like these. These are the mechanics we just talked about. So you're going to have to use 2 of those in developing your game. And then we've got a bunch of wild cards. So these wild cards are whatever. And there's settings, there's game tropes, there's characters like Bernie Sanders or vampire lovers. And we're going to give you 2 of those. And Devin's going to be managing that deck. And then finally, you have a character card as well. So you have a power that you can use once within this process to take control of the game. So you can, for example, if you're a warrior, once for your team, you can discard a card. You're like, we don't want Bernie Sanders in our deck. Trash him. Or you can pick a new card. You're like, we need another character for this. Or you can go to another team and steal their card. And so basically, we're going to be walking around with these decks, facilitating. And what it's going to look like is this. You're going to sit together in groups, 4 to 6, more like 6, groups of 6. Then we're going to, have you sit down. You can take notes. We have paper, large papers and Sharpies, and you can design this within the constraints of these cards. And then at the end, you have 1 minute. We're going to time you, and you present your game. And the idea here is to, this is an interesting challenge. We did it internally. We were like, okay, let's try our own game. And we were able to come up with some pretty interesting things. But the idea here is to brainstorm. And, we're all, a lot of us game designers. There's a lot of, game mojo in this room. So it'd be good to apply it to something constructive. So you can now get together in groups, and we're going to start
yeah, maybe it
cards.
makes sense to try to, we were, they suggested we put 2 tables together. So if you guys want to actually move 2 tables together and form some groups, that'd be really great. And we'll start passing out cards. Thanks.
All right, pencils down, pencils down.
And nobody heard us.
Pencils down. Devin's going to walk around, and teams that want to go first, raise your hand, and we're going to be timing this to make sure we're on time, so you'll have 1 minute to present. Here is the first team, our bravest team so far. Go ahead.
Hello. The name of our game is Genesis. It is set in a post-apocalyptic maze of a city where students will be learning a variety of life skills, such as group dynamics, problem solving, listening skills, self-care and hygiene, cleanliness, fractions, chemistry are all involved in this post-apocalyptic future. And they'll be learning these skills through challenges and puzzles. After solving these challenges, they'll be able to unlock clues that will open chests or caches hidden throughout the city that will actually help them to solve future puzzles and skills. And throughout it, these are like ongoing assessments, so it's not one final summative, except in the point that there will be a master or trainer that will summatively assess them in their various skills. But there's built-in help for strategies to help them alleviate any assessment anxiety that they might have. So the ongoing assessment and the non-summative and failure-free helps alleviate that assessment anxiety. And there's feedback throughout because it's multiplayer. And
thanks.
So our game is called Coconuts, and the setting is a desert island where a bunch of gnome engineers have been stranded, and they need to collect food and water. So the class is divided up into teams, and each team is given a kit of unknown parts and a goal to move a ping pong ball from a start point to an end point. Each team must build a contraption that moves the ping pong ball from the start to finish, and the class together orders those contraptions together to move coconuts from a coconut tree all the way over to a bin at their village. And the more coconuts that they can move from start to finish, the better success they do. So our goal was collaboration, and so we have team collaboration and class collaboration. We're using ping pong balls in our solution. The tropical island is a setting. The gnome engineer is the characters we're playing, and the surprise is that you don't know what's going to be in that crate of parts when you get it.
Very nice. So I'll just keep moving around the room. We'll come over here. Anybody presenting?
All right. Our game is called Go Gaga, sponsored by Lady Gaga. It's a storytelling studio, which is a blended real-life and digital learning experience. It's a digital game to help students collaboratively create and tell a mixed media story. Students choose different production roles in the game. They roll the dice to introduce surprise and discovery with different themes, and badges help students demonstrate competency. Anything to add? La 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 la. Okay, yeah. Owner. Okay, here.
So our goal was ownership of learning, and students have multiple ways to demonstrate their competency because it's mixed media. So and they have choice in what kind of role they could take. They could be a producer. They could be a songwriter. They could write the music. They could write the lyrics. That's how they take ownership.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello. We have a game called Text Quest. This is a board game, and we're trying to solve the problem of literacy. So we want to get kids intrinsically motivated to explore different kinds of texts. And so they have this game board that represents a world, and as a class, they're going to be building up this world over the course of the year. So the game board sort of represents their portfolio of learning. And they start early on with texts that the teacher provides, so they learn about different pieces of the world and discover different areas of the world. And then they later go on and build their own parts of the world based on their own experiences, their own culture. So one goal is to bring in all diverse learners from different perspectives and to share out their experiences that are through text-based, but also art and other aspects of culture to teach people about the world. And then the students go through the world as they're building it and collect chips, which basically represent like passport stamps. So they visit and have to communicate with each other how their world is built using different kinds of texts like narrative and informational texts as well as myths, so that they're discovering as they're unpacking and analyzing all of these texts. And that's it. Thank you.
Hey, I'm going to come around here so that I'm not facing my back to everyone. Our kind of like educational problem was creativity. And we thought that there's like an inherent issue with sort of like kids starting off with this amazing imagination, and as they go through school, they kind of start to fit into this box, and they lose their kind of creativity or feel like they can't be creative as they once were. So using our setting of a post-apocalyptic gypsy kind of vibe place with magic wands, we thought we can, use narrative and competency to help us solve this problem. So the idea is you're in this post-apocalyptic world, and there's 4 players, and each of them have a wand, and each wand can do a different task. So one of them is for making food. One of them is for making shelter. What are the other ones? Transportation and social. There's a social one, and there's one for transportation. Now, each time a player uses a wand, they get better at that particular thing. So they increase their competency in one element. But the idea is these players have to come together to really kind of like rebuild the world from nothing, and understand that through creativity and like sharing and these kind of magical powers and being competent in a particular field, they can do that. So the game is called From Dust or something like that. There we go.
Great, thanks. You guys want to go?
Do we want to go that way so we can... Come on, friends, I need help holding this. Okay, so our game is Apocalypse How. It is a collaborative storytelling game where we help students develop their creativity skills using feedback and surprise. So the way we've worked in surprise is through a set of decks of cards. So the first very small deck of cards is the Apocalypse deck, which basically they'll draw one card at the beginning of the game, and that'll tell you what kind of apocalypse it is. You know, super volcano, your meteor, your zombie thing, etc. What happens there is each of those will have a symbol, right? and then that will be in the events deck. So what'll happen is you'll take all the events matching that symbol, and you'll mix them into the basic resources deck and then the advanced resources deck. You mix them in randomly. These resources are basically the stuff you might find in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. The basic stuff is, you know, some food, maybe a gun, dog, whatever. The more advanced stuff is the stuff you might build with the basic resources, you know, a farm, a tractor, that sort of thing. So what happens is the students take turns. They basically draw a set of basic resources, and the question is how to rebuild the world. So the students will basically take turns, give a couple sentences. Hey, these are the resources I've got. This is how I'd like to build and what I'd like to do. And then the next student will say, okay, this is my feedback. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. Here are the resources that I can contribute. As these stories develop and different resources are combined, students will be able to start drawing advanced resources, which let them build more sophisticated things and build more elaborate stories. And this kind of goes on until, I guess, the class session ends or whatever. It's kind of difficult to have winners and losers in a creativity game, so there's no winners and losers. It's more of a collaborative experience.
All right, moving right along. Let's drop over here.
Okay, so we were tasked with engendering empathy, with using surprise, discovery, and incorporating costumes, maps, and an alien world. And much like what the United States has done, we chose to cast Bernie Sanders off. He was one of our cards too. So using our warrior card. So we chose our game is called In the Alien Shoes. It is a live action role-playing game for the classroom. I'll just read the blurb that we came up with. So the classroom is turned into a unique alien world with different communities of aliens played by the students around the classroom. A set of explorers, also played by students from Earth, are tasked with speaking with each community of aliens around the room, and in order to understand them and help them solve a randomly assigned problem or dispute that exists in this alien world. Throughout the game, there's a random event dice that gives students the chance to flip and switch perspectives from aliens and Earth explorers, and they can leave and go back to Earth if they choose to once this problem is resolved adequately amongst all the different communities of aliens. That's the game. Did I say the name? Yeah, I did.
Cool. All right.
4 more minutes left.
All right, hi everybody. Our game is called Thundercats in the Fungal Forest. We have not secured the IP for that yet. But our main goal was problem solving. And so because we decided to use all the cards we got in spite of their strange mix of elements, the premise of the game is that you have some gnome engineers living on a forest planet that has been invaded by Thundercats. And the idea is that they need to find a way to coexist, which is kind of where the problem solving comes in, because we were kind of talking about how problem solving is inherently collaborative in a lot of ways. So basically, the players in the game would be, one would be a representative of the Thundercats, the other would be a representative of the gnome engineers. They would be given asymmetrical data sets, and then through kind of inquiry and collaborative conversation, they would kind of see which technology strengths the other has, and then combine those technologies to create more mushrooms and more food in this fungal forest so that they can all happily coexist and eat. So that's that.
Space didn't make the cut, huh? All right, we got 2 more.
Okay, we were charged to use empathy as our goal, using the discovery and social relationships. We had Pikachu, Prehistoric, and Forest as our requirements. And we came up with the games as Pikachu in the Prehistoric Forest of Friends. And in this game, Pikachu is stranded in the forest. Along the way, he meets dinosaurs, understands and helps them, solves a problem so they together can escape the forest. And the metaphor of the game is each time you solve a problem, you have to lock arms with that person and move around. But the more empathy you show, the harder it is to navigate around the room and include everyone. And so that's a part of the work behind it. And also, each problem is a part of a bigger thing, so that you're seeing you see the trees initially, but then you come to see the whole forest once you solve the problems together. So.
All right, guys, last but not least.
Now there's two. These guys. Oh, sorry.
Our name of our game is Candy Quest, because we're taking place in Candyland, and our educational issue is collaboration, but we also got autonomy. So we figured that if we use that competency in social relationships with our gnome engineers, and our quest and our chess will make it work. So each gnome engineer goes on a quest in Candyland, which is not complete yet, to find different ingredients in chess, and they have to do some sort of challenge individually to unlock the chest that has the ingredient. And as we move along, they have to collaborate with each other once they have the ingredients to open up chests to find out what the recipe is. But they have to figure out which ingredients probably go best to open up the chest. That's the key. Once you have all the correct ingredients together, it'll open up the recipe, and then they can build the final castle or what have you. Oh, I finished in time.
All right, so hi everyone. Our game is called the Electric Test, and basically, so what does Pikachu, Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton have to do with this? Basically, the Electric Test is your dream come true. By a show of hands, how many of you here felt helpless when you were taking tests or getting assessed before? How many of you here would love to be in control of your assessments and your tests? Well, that's what the Electric Test does. So we basically run the assessment by giving the kids autonomy and feedback. So things like they get to decide the number of times they get to take the test, the length of their assessment, they get to take timeouts, and during that they can take a Pikachu break where they get to pick cards that give them positive reinforcement to calm them down. You also have you also can give the questions that you guys don't like answering or you find too difficult to answer to Bernie Sanders, who will then redistribute those questions to other people. And then they also get to choose whether they want to be tested on the Bernie curve or the Hillary curve as well. One thing that's great about this would be the feedback. So they get to do a classroom debate without a teacher's help about how to answer some of the questions. And last of all, I think at the end of this, it would be great if they could give feedback to each other as to their strengths and weaknesses while playing this game, the Electric Test, because clarity gives power, and we think that's what would actually give them confidence, knowing what they were good at and what else they need to, work on as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. That wraps it up. We know it's lunchtime, so we're gonna now close this up. If you want to talk to us, we're here at the front. You can check out. We've been covering a lot of the games here and live streaming some workshops and talks, so you can come check it out on our blog as well.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much. These were great ideas. Thank you.
Cheers.